Hey,
Steve May.
long time no see.
How are you? I'm Paul Catalina. That's Steve May. This is the Fantasy Football Show nugget, tidbit, morsel of information. We're going to give you some draft previews. This one's about running backs. You know those things that the NFL doesn't value as much, but in fantasy football makes or breaks your whole season. So real football, can draft a guy in the 6th round and be fine. In fantasy football, he's your whole year.
I went back and looked at some old drafts from the league that we'll be having our 25th year this year, and you play in it. But I went back and looked at some old drafts, and there was a time where the first 8 or 9 picks, all running backs. The only anomaly would be like a Randy Moss, might go in there in the first round. But yeah, times have definitely changed.
Yeah, well, and then again, somebody who was great last year has already hit the wall. The running back hit-o-meter is so high, you never really know when you're going to be Sean Alexander, 2,000 yards to nothing in a year and a half.
There's some guys on different fantasy talk shows, like they have a pretty hard rule. Like if the running back's been in the league 4 or 5 years, they are not taking them early. They'll grab some older ones in later rounds just to have a little bit of depth. But to build your team around an older running back, there's a lot of people that are shying away from that.
Yeah. And there's a lot of interesting ones that we'll talk about today. For example, like Cam Akers with the Rams is somebody that I want on my team, but I don't know how badly, and he was a miraculous recovery last year to play in the postseason from that injury and the way he worked through it. But there are more questions at this position than any position that you can draft.
Yeah. We'll go through my rankings here, and it's a crapshoot. Once you get past the first 2 or 3, you could really rotate everybody around and come up with a logical argument to put any running back pretty much in any spot on your rankings.
Absolutely. All right, let's go tier 1 here.
All right, tier 1, Jonathan Taylor. I think that's a no-brainer this year. I have seen McCaffrey, who's my number 2, going number 1 in some drafts, but
I'm not touching him.
I'm not either, because if you pick him, so what are we on now? 2 years in a row where he's been hurt. That's a trend for a running back for the most part. So
the thing that teases is that when he comes back, he plays well again.
Yeah.
So, but when does it start to really linger?
Yeah. So if you draft him and he gets hurt, that's your team right there. So I'm going to let somebody else take that risk. If McCaffrey leads them to a fantasy championship, then good on you. I'm not going to do it. Then I got Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, and Austin Eckler. And you could, for me, after Taylor, those next 4, McCaffrey, Henry, Cook, Eckler, you can mix and match those and rank them anywhere where you want. So tier 2, I got Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, Nick Chubb. And then tier 3, DeAndre Swift. Kamara. It's looking like Kamara now probably is not going to miss any time this year. If he gets suspended, most likely at this point, it's going to be next year. So Kamara have been dropping a little bit on the average draft position, but now he's starting to come back up a little bit. So I think Kamara is a safe pick at this point. Barkley, you'll get arguments for Saquon Barkley to be in that top tier. I've got him down. Just again, the injury risk. We just don't know how good that offense is going to be. So I'm leery. Now, if he drops, all these players, if they drop and there's value. You look like we talked about with the quarterbacks, this person's still there. I'm getting him 2 rounds later than, what he probably should have gone. Then, I'll take these guys.
I'm not sold on Barkley not getting traded at some point during the year.
Yeah. Then Aaron Jones, Javonte Williams. Williams is in a weird spot with Melvin Gordon, but
he's ahead of him.
He's ahead of him. But last year, Gordon was still getting paid like $10 million. This year, he's only like $2 million. So it's reverse. So Williams has the bigger investment from the Broncos. So Williams will be the starter, but if you draft him, you definitely want to get Gordon on there just as your backup. Leonard Fournette, James Conner, and Zeke round up my top tiers.
Let's talk about Tony Pollard.
Okay.
Tony Pollard's interesting to me, and we'll do a whole Cowboys video here in a little bit. But Tony Pollard is interesting to me that by the middle of the year, he could leap up 2 tiers because of how they may have to use him.
Yeah.
And I will also tell you this. based on their wide receiver depth, he's going to be on the field a little bit more than you would think lining up in the slot, because it's either him or somebody that you're like, huh? Who's that now?
I have Pollard in tier 5 right now. But like you said, he could easily move up depending on what happens there. You mentioned Cam Akers. I got Cam Akers down in tier 4 again.
But he could be in tier 3 or 2, depending on what they do. Yeah, he's one of those guys. He and Tony Pollard are in that category of like, well, and same with Javonte Williams. You know, Javonte Williams could find his way all the way, maybe being one of the best running backs in the whole league, depending on how Nathaniel Hackett runs that offense with Russell Wilson, which I think will be much more wide open, you know, because of Russ wants to do that. But they're going to run the ball in Denver, and they'll run it probably pretty well. Yeah. Just how much, you know, is it? And my concern now in my life isn't so much yards as when you're at the 3-yard line, are you giving it to this guy, or are you running a pass play?
And, you know, Williams is going to get used a ton. I do think he'll be the goal line back there. So I've seen him in some mock drafts. I don't put a lot of stock in mock drafts because you don't know who you're drafting against. Some people get on there and just jack around when you're doing a mock draft. But I have seen some where he's gone in the first round. But I think that's a little bit too high for him. So my tier 4 backs or running backs that are going to should get a lot of carries. I got Breece Hall in tier 4. The running back situation in San Francisco is kind of up in the air. I think Elijah Mitchell is the number 1 there, but that's going to be a running back by committee. Travis Etienne with Jacksonville is really intriguing. I could see I have him here, but I could see myself, just because I think there's a ton of value there with everything he can do, the chemistry he has with Trevor Lawrence. I can see him moving up tier 3, tier 2 by the end of the year.
Yeah. He's an interesting one in the Doug Peterson offense. The Jaguars have a Super Bowl winning coach now in Doug Peterson, who he and Carson Wentz found their ways both out the door almost, back to back there in Philadelphia. But I think Doug Peterson has something there. And I know this. The Jaguars are not going to be good this year. No. But they have nowhere to go but up because hiring Urban Meyer was the stupidest thing they could have ever done. Honestly, they could have hired like a 9-year-old to run the team better than he was going to do it.
Well, they got that maturity-wise. Yeah. But, what a disaster. They totally wasted last year.
Well, they wasted a year of development on Trevor Lawrence. Yeah. And you never know when you break a quarterback. This is not the same example, but remember when people were really high on Rob Johnson? Like he had all this potential. I'll even better one. This is a more fair comparison. David Carr. When he was drafted number 1 overall. The Texans drafted him number 1 overall, threw him straight to the Wolves, and then he was always running from ghosts and never could hit his potential because, they broke him early. Yeah. And so mentally, he was never there. So physically, he could never take that next step because he was never fully all in because he just got so pummeled and battered around. And you don't want to make that same mistake with Trevor Lawrence, who, no offense to David Carr, but based on what he did in college and what David Carr did in college, there's not really a comparison. Yeah. What Trevor Lawrence was able to do was supposed to be the second coming of Peyton Manning. And, they gave Peyton Manning a good coach when he started out. Yeah. They gave Trevor Lawrence Urban. For
Jacksonville, they're in that horrible AFC South. Yeah. So anything could happen. If they stay healthy, they have their good coach, they got their quarterback, they might surprise some people. Yeah. Some running back by committee situations you probably just want to avoid if possible. These would come into, we can talk about draft strategies, but, one of the more popular ones is the 0 RB. Where you don't take your first running back until maybe round 6 or 7. So when you're doing that, these are the kind of running backs you're just hoping, okay, they're going to emerge as a starter at some point. So, in Buffalo, you have the rookie James Cook, you got Singletary, you have Moss still in the mix there. We already talked about San Francisco. With the Jets, I do think Breece Hall is going to be the main guy, but you still got Michael Carter there, and then I'm forgetting somebody else on their depth chart with the Jets. But that's one that could kind of be a mess. The Patriot running back situation is always historically one that it's hard to guess.
He's leaned more into kind of a lead dog back with a younger quarterback now than not having Tom Brady. But even then, the Patriots do everything on matchups. Mm-hmm. So if they have a running back they feel will play better and they're going to throw the ball to the backfield more in a certain game than your guy who had 25 carries and 180 yards and 3 touchdowns a week before gets 7 carries and 45 yards.
Yeah. So I have Damian Harris right now above Ramondre Stevenson, but that could change before even week 1. And then Atlanta, you have the rookie Algiers, and then you still have Cordero Patterson. Is he going to be more of a running back or a receiver this year? It looks like he's still going to kind of be in that running back role. But that's another one. Patterson for me is someone you want to draft in a later round. I like Algiers. I like Pierce with the Texans. I think they're going to be horrible. They're probably not going to be trying to win too many games just to help their draft status, but somebody's got to run the ball there, and Pierce seems to be the guy. So that Pearson, Hall, and Algiers would be the 3 rookie running backs that I would try to get at some point.
I would also not be too shy on Isaiah Spiller.
Yeah.
Not because he's going to play a lot, but you might be able to get him in a couple games because Austin Eckler has shown that he's going to miss 3 games a year. Mm-hmm. He's going to miss them. Yeah. And, then the Chargers have that situation. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, a lot of people handcuff on Isaiah Spiller, especially if you draft Austin Eckler early. Yep. All right. That's going to do it for this little fantasy football tidbit, nugget, morsel. Maybe that should be the show. Tidbits, nuggets, and morsels.
That could be any number. That could be a website that you don't want to visit.
Fantasy football charcuterie. A veritable tray of different meats and cheeses. That's what this will be. And, of course, we have the full show that will start airing on Wednesdays pretty soon. When we come back, check out the next video coming up, which will be on wide receivers and tight ends. Plus, we've got one coming up as well on Cowboys players. And if you missed it, check out our quarterbacks video as well. And like and subscribe because that's what our lifeblood is. And I hate to pander, but look, what are you doing in your life? You can't just hit like and subscribe.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Very simple.
I mean, do you think you're better than me? You're not better than me. And I'm not better than you. We're equal.
That's right.
That's the world.
That's right.
Let's all hold hands. When you see us again, we'll be talking about running backs and wide receivers. This is the Fantasy Football Charcuterie.
I like that.
On the Sikkim 365 NFL channel and Cowboys channel.